Well, once again, it is time for movie reviews here on Pure 24/7 Radio, and I'm very thrilled to welcome once again my good friend Andy Godfrey. Hi, Andy.
Hey Nathan, great to be with you. It's been a long day. I've been at the Christian Resources exhibition here in Milton Keynes and long couple of days. So it's nice to be having a bit of time to relax and talk movies.
Absolutely, yes. Festivals, conferences, and things like that can be very tiring, but it's usually very satisfying. Great to meet loads of people.
Yeah, absolutely. We had loads of people come up. I was on the stand for Good News for Everyone, who used to be the Gideons, and the organisation I work with, Outreach UK, we're working with the Gideons. We're doing evangelism training. I have been doing this for 40 years, where I've been training people in evangelism.
Wow.
And we've got a new course called Casting Your Nets, and we train people to be become more confident in sharing their faith, because it's amazing how many Christians are just too scared to open their mouths. Maybe they're afraid that they're going to get asked a question they don't know the answer to, or they're afraid that they're not going to be able to answer a question that they get asked. So we do this little course where we just say to people, none of that matters. Just sharing Jesus is what matters. Sharing the reality of the difference Jesus Christ has made in your life is what matters.
Mm.
And so we train people along those sort of lines. So yeah, it's been really good. It was a good couple of days. And the joy of it was, I've been to so many of these exhibitions over the years, the Gathering and Spring Harvest and Christian Resources. This one was in Milton Keynes. This one was 10 minutes from my house. I could
Wow.
walk there. I didn't have to get up early to get to the event. And I got home in good time as well.
Yeah, why can't
Yeah,
more be so close to home?
exactly. They should all be in Milton Keynes. It's the centre of the universe, as we know. And, they should have definitely have more events here.
Okay. Well,
I think we should
anyhow,
talk about movies.
yes, yes. Movie reviews as ever. Looking forward to hearing about. I understand there are a few new films, a couple of new in
Yeah.
cinema, and also a few at home as well.
Yeah. So this time last week, I said to you that I was really excited because I was going to a London premiere in Leicester Square of a film. I didn't make it. I was taken ill, so I'm really disappointed. However, I have seen the film, and Nathan, this is one that we have got to plug now. We have talked about this before on Pure 247, so I make no apology for talking about it again because as from today, it is out in cinemas. My local Cineworld is showing this up to 6 times a day, every day for the next week. So nobody's got any excuse not to go and see it. And I want churches to go, and I want you to take your non-Christian friends to the cinema, and I want Christians to go. This is a fantastic film. It's a faith-based film that we're talking about. Now, sometimes we get faith-based films, and let's be honest, they're a bit naff. Okay, some Christian films are a bit naff. They're full of coincidences. They're full of, things that people regard as answers to prayer that other people would call just a coincidence. All sorts of things. This one isn't. This is a really great faith-based film because it's a true story, and you meet the participants at the end. So we are in Possum Trot. Possum Trot is a small town in the southern United States. It's the early 2000s, and the pastor of a black Pentecostal church and his wife have realized that when the Bible talks about looking after widows, it also talks about looking after orphans. And there is a local orphan society, there's an adoption agency on the edge of the town, which has got a large number of children that they haven't been able to house. They haven't found homes for these kids. These kids come from rough backgrounds. These kids are troublemakers. These kids have never known a decent, stable life. And the pastor and his wife of this church decide, right, we are going to adopt 2 of these children. They might be runaways. They might give us, nightmares. They might make our life really, really difficult, but we are going to adopt these 2. And these 2 children do. I mean, they cause all sorts of havoc, and they don't want to be in a Christian home. They don't want to be in a pastor's home. But nevertheless, the pastor and his wife adopt these 2 children. Then the pastor says to the congregation in a sermon, and we get several sermons in the film, one of which really presents the story of Jesus in a very powerful way. So that's worth seeing for that alone. The pastor says to the congregation, any of you here want to follow suit? There are other children in this adoption agency that need good homes. okay, that are waiting to be adopted. The net result, and it's a long story, and the film tells the story beautifully, is that 77 children were adopted by members of this church. And they ended up with their own instant Sunday school, of course. But it is a true story. And what the film does beautifully is it tells the story of all 77 children, but manages to focus in on some of the children without ignoring the others, if you know what I mean. So although we get a central focus on some of the children, particularly the ones the pastor and his wife adopted, who are the children of real troublemakers initially, the other children's stories are not ignored. And I got to interview the producer of the film for Sorted magazine a few weeks ago. Hopefully the interview will be in the next issue of Sorted. And I asked him if the children, the actors playing had met the real life children. And he said, yes, some of them did. And amazingly, they actually hit it off. So, you know, it'd be like you meeting somebody playing Nathan, you know? And he said they hit it off and they got on really well because these kids have now grown up. And at the end of the film, we get to an interview with the pastor and his wife. All the way through the film, there's an actor playing the pastor and his wife. I thought this was touching, moving, worth seeing. I saw it on my laptop because the film company were kind enough to send me an advance copy. It came out in the States on July the 4th, and it's been doing really, really good business in cinemas in America. And I am hoping it will do really, really good business here. You know, I want to see this film do well. It's from Angel Studios, the same people that brought us The Chosen and Sound of Freedom and Jesus Revolution last year. So they've got a great pedigree. It's a really touching, moving, stirring, actually quite inspiring film, because I think there will be some people that will go and see this and want to adopt children. You know, we get some facts and figures at the beginning of the film about how many children worldwide there are who are homeless and how many children and it touches your heart, you know. So from right from the very first frame, this film is tugging at your heartstrings, you know. And it is a remarkable film, remarkable for being a Christian film that isn't naff, and you could quite happily take non-Christians to see it because of the true story, because of the acting, because I don't know who trained the child actors, but they are absolutely superb, all of them. And it's got a great score. There are some hymns on the soundtrack. It is just worth seeing, and I would encourage everybody listening to this, I mean everybody, to support it. One of the things, Nathan, is that if we don't support, as Christians, really good Christian films when they come out, they won't have the money to make more Christian films. And, you know, I long to see cinemas full of good quality films. But you know, when you get a good quality film that conveys the message of Jesus, wow, you know, that's great. So I would say to everybody listening, you won't have any trouble finding it. Sometimes with these sort of films, you have trouble finding them because they're only shown in art house cinemas, and excuse me, they get a very limited release. This is getting a proper release. You'll find it in Cineworld, you'll find it in Odeons, you'll find it in View Cinemas. Go see it, take people to see it, and please, you know, people, let's make it a hit. It's, as I say, it's from the same people that brought us Sound of Freedom, Jesus Revolution. They also the same company that made the TV series The Chosen. It is a lot of money's been spent on this production, and again, that's often the problem with some Christian films, because you can tell that they're very low budget. You know, this is just excellent, and I've only seen it on my laptop. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. A party from my church is hopefully going this weekend to see it. So I really want to highlight that. We've talked about it before, but finally it's in cinemas. So get out there and see it, folks. It's called The Sound of Hope, the Possum Trot Story, and look out for it. So that's really good. By contrast, we've got a few new films other new films in the cinema this week. including Transformers 1, as if we hadn't had enough Transformers movies. This is an origin story of the Transformers, but kids will probably love it. You know, lots of action, lots of things being blown up, lots of things, lots of cars smashing into other cars. Transformers 1 is out this weekend. Also out this weekend, and it's been out now for a week, the follow-up to Joker, which we talked about last week. So this stars Joaquin Phoenix as Joker and Lady Gaga as a woman who falls in love with him. What surprised me more than anything about this, it's a musical. It's a you and on Pure, you could play the songs quite happily because they are old-fashioned standards. Hallelujah, come on, get happy is one of the songs. I actually loved the music in this so much. I bought the soundtrack. And it came out on CD. It wasn't streaming, it wasn't downloading, it was an actual physical CD, which I love because you get a booklet and you know which track's playing and you don't have to, faff around. You just put the CD in and it plays. It's a story, it's a courtroom drama. So in the first film, Joker killed 5 people. This is the story of his trial, and at various moments both he and Lady Gaga burst into song to kind of move the story forward. But they are old-fashioned songs, old standards, and it is actually. I came out of the cinema thinking, did I enjoy that or didn't I? Did I like that or didn't I? I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure. I think I liked it. So that's out. Also out, and this is a 15 certificate, a film called A Different Man. Now, this is a story of a deformed man, if you think the Elephant Man, but a man who has elephant features all over his face. He's incredibly deformed, hunchback. He's living in a rundown apartment and he's sort of scorned by everybody. Nobody pays him any attention. He can't get any work. What have you. One day he gets a knock on the door and it's his new neighbor. And it turns out his new neighbor is a playwright. And she's looking for a new subject for her play. And she decides to make this deformed man the subject of her play. And she decides that he can star in a play about his own life. Fine, no problem. What she doesn't know, but we do, is that he is actually undergoing treatment. There is a new miracle cure for his treatment. And he wakes up one day and all of the sort of elephant-like features, the carbuncles, the hideous muscles, the out-of-place joints on his face have all fallen away. And underneath is an incredibly handsome young man. So he starts to use his old skin as a mask so he can still be in the play. But what happens then is another real-life deformed character turns up saying, I hear you're doing a play about a deformed life character. I'd like to play him. And this brings the two into conflict. This brings confusion, this brings conflict, this brings chaos. I'm not going to say any more than that about the plot. It is a really, really, really good drama. I mean, it is really good. It is very powerful. There's a lot of allusions in the film to Beauty and the Beast, for obvious reasons, because, Beast turns into a beautiful, handsome prince at the end of that story. So there's a lot of allusions to Beauty and the Beast. There's a lot of references to it. I thought all of the acting was really good. One of the actors is in real life, plays himself in real life. He's really deformed, so he's playing himself. And I think it's great to see opportunities in a major film being given to disabled people. If I can, I don't know how PC that is to say it like that, but I think it's great to see these people like that being given a major role. It's a really, really powerful drama. I thought the ending, the final scene, was a little bit weak, but on the whole, this play, A Different Man, this film, A Different Man, it's worth seeing. So there you go. Those are the 4 at the cinema, actually, because I've included Transformers Day 1, which will be rubbish, but kids will love it.
Okay, excellent. Well, they sound like some good films there.
Yeah,
Good.
really good.
I'm surprised to hear that Joker 2 is a musical. I understand it was more of a dark sort of
No,
drama.
it's definitely, without any question at all, it's a musical. The soundtrack CD has got 12 musical numbers on it. They
Right.
burst into song at any given moment. It is a dark drama. I mean, it is dark. It's a dark psych. It tries to be many things. I think this is part of my problem. It is a musical. It is a courtroom drama. It is a love story. It is a psychological drama. And I almost think that they've thrown everything at this but the kitchen sink. And when I came out, I thought, no, I'm sure I saw a kitchen sink in there somewhere as well. And that's part, I think, was part of my problem. I was having trouble in my mind defining this film doesn't know what it wants to be. It wants to be all things to all men, but it is without question, first and foremost, a musical. And you know how in some musicals, characters burst into song and the lights change and the scene changes, and suddenly they're in beautiful costumes and the girls are in beautiful flowing gowns. That happens. I mean, that actually happens in this, where we go into fantasy moments. It is quite violent, and as I say, I could not make up. I like the music because I'm a fan of musicals, and I love old standards, and I love some of the songs that are in this. Um, I was surprised of how much of a musical it's a musical, you know. So yeah, I was foot tapping along, but as a film, I came out genuinely, and it's a week since I've seen it, and I came out thinking, did I enjoy that or didn't I? I don't know. Maybe it's a film that rewards more on second viewing. Maybe I need to go and see it again, and I will see it again at some point. But it is definitely a musical, and as I say, you guys could play the soundtrack quite happily because they're all old songs, jazzed up, but really great performances. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for his role in the first film as Joker. So whether he'll win the Oscar again for the sequel, I don't know. Lady Gaga playing his girlfriend, I think she possibly is the only female artist on the planet that could play that role. I think a few years ago you might have said Madonna could play that role. But I sat there and thought, I can't imagine, I can't think of anyone else other than Lady Gaga in this particular role. So yes, it's a musical.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Andy. Some great movie reviews, and I understand there are a couple new at home now as well.
Yeah, we got a couple new at home and talking musicals. So new on Netflix, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. Now, I don't know about you, whether you play Whitney Houston on Pure, I was never a big Whitney Houston fan. Okay. In this film, the complex story of her life is played by an actress called Naomi Aki, who is very, very good. And basically, we get the story of a down and out poor girl from, the wrong end of New York, the wrong side of the tracks, who had an incredible voice, making it big. You know, so we get the Whitney Houston story. It's not particularly remarkable in that, in terms of the staging, in terms of the way the story is told. It's a straightforward retelling of Whitney Houston's life. It didn't do great business at the cinema. I saw it at the cinema a few years ago. It's now on Netflix. If you are interested in pop music, if you like things like Rocket Man, if you like things like, One Love, the Bob Marley story, which was out last year, if you like pop music and the history of pop music, you're going to want to see this because Whitney Houston was a major artist. She was one of the best-selling artists of all time, and she had this sort of New Jersey choir girl accent, and she made it big. So that's new on Netflix, and then also new on Netflix. What was the other one I wanted to highlight? Well, I wanted to highlight the fact that last week my friend Mark Kermode, who is probably the nation's favourite film critic, he's the nation's leading film critic. He wrote an article about a friend of mine in the Guardian newspaper. And he wrote an article about a lady called Carol Morley. Carol is the UK's leading film director, and she's a friend of mine. And over the years, Carol has made some remarkable films with some really big stars. And I got to know Carol initially during COVID. She started a club for people on Friday nights. And what you did was she picked a film, you watched it. She picked an old film that was available on streaming services. Everybody watched it who was in this club. She called it the Friday Night Film Club. And this was during lockdown. And then we got to ask Carol questions about if you were making that film as a director, what would you have done? How would you have done things differently? It was a fascinating. And through that, I got to know Carol. And, you know, and a couple of years ago, she made a film called Typist Artist Pirate King. Now, if I were to swing the camera around, you would see a big poster for this on my wall for those watching on video. Obviously, this is not making very great radio, but there it is. Okay. So Typist Artist Pirate King. It starred Kelly MacDonald and Monica Doolan. And it was a film about, sorry, I've got a cinema-sized poster on my wall. As I say, not great radio, but there you go. Okay.
Wow.
And it's signed by Carol, by the director, that poster. So it's one of my proudest possessions. The film is about a lady called Audrey Amis. Now, Audrey was a student at the Royal School of Academy back in the 50s. But we've talked about this before, I think. But Audrey had to drop out of the Royal School of Academy because she had a mental illness. And her mental illness manifested itself like this. She would walk up to total strangers and she would see them as people from her past. So there's a scene, I think we have talked about this before, but there's a scene where she's in a cafe and she walks up to two total strangers and she says, "Hi, John. Hi, Jane. Haven't seen you since school." And this was an illness that she had, and it's a real mental condition. Audrey painted over 1,000 pictures, none of which had ever been exhibited. And my friend Carol Morley got hold of some of these paintings. She was allowed to see them. And she decided to make an imaginary film about the end of Audrey Amis's life. So in the film, Audrey Amis has said, "My paintings can be displayed. There's an art gallery that's willing to display my paintings." And she says to the mental nurse who's looking after her, who's played by Kelly MacDonald, brilliant performance. She says, "You've got to take me to this art gallery. You've got to take me and my carrier bags full of 1,000 paintings to this art gallery because my paintings can be displayed at long, long last. I'm dying. And finally, my artwork is going to be seen by the public." So they get in the car, they load up all these paintings. This is in London. And Kelly MacDonald turns around and she says to Audrey, "Where is this art gallery then?" And Audrey says, "Sunderland." She goes, "What? Sunderland? We're in London." Anyway, they go on a road trip, and it's kind of, at one point they compare themselves to Thelma and Louise. And it's about this journey. It's about these two women becoming friends. It's about Audrey's art. It's about what happened at the end of her life. Carol met Audrey's sister and her family, and I've met them as well because I was invited, amazingly, to the London premiere, and I was invited to the premiere party afterwards. So I got to meet the actresses in the film, and Carol invited me because, as I say, we're friends. It's a wonderful film. It was my favourite film of the year when it came out 2 years ago. It is just a film that two women on a road trip, one of them has got mental problems, the other is a carer, having fun, getting to know each other, having arguments, falling in with each other, falling out with each other. I'm not going to spoil the ending. The ending involves one of the most famous old hymns of all time, "Will Your Anchor Hold in the Storms of Life?" And that is actually on the soundtrack. And we actually see people singing that hymn, and it's integral to the plot at the end. So this is on Netflix now. So Mark Kermode highlighted it in an article in the newspapers last week. And Carol messaged a few friends and said, "Oh, Mark's talked about me in the paper." And it was an opportunity to remind people that this film is now on Netflix. Typist Artist Pirate King is a delight, and I would really recommend it. Also at home, to watch at home, again, new on Netflix. So they're all on Netflix this week. The Boy and the Heron. Now, The Boy and the Heron is a Japanese animated film that I had problems with. It's 2 hours, 4 minutes long. It is a strange story of a boy and a heron set in Japan. And the heron leads this boy into a sort of fantasy world where dreams come true, where there are weird creatures. This heron can talk, basically. So this is a kids' animated film, but for kids at 2 hours 4 minutes long, it's too long. It's too long, and it's too complicated, and it's too involved. But families may be looking for something on Netflix this weekend to watch at home with the kids. You'll see The Boy and the Heron, new animated film on Netflix. Just be aware that it's complicated. It's not really for younger children. It is 2 hours 4 minutes long, and it's okay. It's weird. It is absolutely where there's some weird fantasy. It is not really for the faint-hearted. I mean, there's one scene where the boy gets covered in frogs, and I'm kind of going, ugh, just the very thought of that gives me the creeps. So if you see this film advertised as being on Netflix as an animated family film, just be aware it's a 12 certificate for a reason. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody under the age of 12. It is long. It is over 2 hours, which for an animated film is quite something, to be honest. Normally they're about an hour and a half. But, you might see it on Netflix and be tempted. And your 12-year-olds who like fantasy and pure fantasy and Lord of the Rings and type stuff might enjoy it. I thought it was too long. I thought it was too complicated, but it's on Netflix. That's from this weekend.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Andy.
My
Great to
pleasure.
be up to speed with some of the latest films. Before we finish for today,
Yeah.
we've got a comment that came in recently from Andy Brown. He said, Dear Pure Team, I've really been enjoying the movie reviews with Andy Godfrey on a Friday. Looking forward to them each week. And in
That's very
reference
kind.
to what we were saying about the different dog movies, he
Oh,
says,
yes.
yes, he says, a family favorite in our house is the movie Beethoven and its sequel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Beethoven's great. I mean, Beethoven is about I'm trying to think, it's a Bernard, isn't it?
I think so. I
I
think I've
think
seen,
so,
seen it
yeah.
before. Yeah, a
Yeah. I
big
mean, it's
Bernese
quite an
dog.
old film. I'm just looking it up very quickly. But yeah, and also I think we have an email about somebody wanting to know about a film called K9 and also Turner and Hooch.
Yes, same email. He says he remembers watching two movies growing up. One called K9, and that's K-9, and the other
Yeah.
Turner and Hooch. He thinks the latter starred Tom Hanks. Is that right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. So there you are, Andy. That did
That's a
star Tom
Tom
Hanks.
Hanks film. And the plot of those two films is fairly similar.
Yeah, that was his question. So
Yeah,
they,
basically, I think they're detective movies with the dog solving the crime. So it's kind of like a human version of Scooby Doo. But I think the plot of those two films is very similar. Beethoven was a 1992 film starring Charles Gaudrin, Sarah Rose Kerr, Nicholas Tom, and again, it was about a great big St. Bernard dog, massive dog. So he's absolutely right. But I do think he's right that uh, the plot lines of K9 and Turner and Hooch are very similar. Yeah.
okay.
If there's
Excellent.
anybody else got any other questions or recommendations, let us know because I'd love to hear I'd love to hear what the listeners are watching. And
Yeah.
if they do go and see a film that we've reviewed, I'd love to know what they think
Absolutely.
because they
That'd be
might say
fantastic.
Andy Godfrey was talking absolute rubbish. You know, Megalopolis was the greatest film ever. No, it's not. Megalopolis is the worst film ever. You know, and I ranted about that last week. I read somebody this week who said they thought it was fine. It's not. It's rubbish. So if listeners have that experience, I'd love to hear from them.
Yeah.
But so thank you. Yeah, so Beethoven, that's another one to add to the watch list. And of course, when we were talking about dogs in movies, my daughter, as I said, was the World's Biggest Amy fan. Not only was she screaming 101 Dalmatians, Dad, and Oliver and Company, she was screaming at the radio, Lady and the Tramp.
Of course.
And as soon as we finished that broadcast, she sent me a message and, Dad, you forgot Lady and the Tramp, which turns out is her favorite Disney movie featuring dogs. And I had completely forgotten. And I love Lady and the Tramp. In fact, when Amy was young, we bought the DVD of Lady and the Tramp, and it wasn't for her; it was for me. um, so yeah. But anything, listeners, please let us know, and particularly if you go and see Sound of Hope. If you go and see Sound of Hope, the Poss and Trot story, this new Christian film, please let us know that you've been to see it, and please let us know what you think. I
Yeah.
was in touch yesterday with the team that's distributing the film around the country, and they're thrilled that Cineworld and Odeons have picked up on it. We just want to know that people are going to see it, so that would be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, I hope everybody has a good weekend and enjoys their movies.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks so much, Andy. Great to hear from you again. And I look forward to speaking again next week.
We will.